Hi everyone, welcome back to Novel Nomad and welcome to the mid-year book freakout tag. Now I am not known to do these every year because frankly the first question petrifies me because who can pick a favourite book so far? Honestly, it is so hard to choose just one and I haven't chosen one today. But anyway, let's get straight into the tag. It's going around BookTube at the moment, you all know what it's about. So let me get started. Question 1 is, what is your favourite book for 2019 so far? And like I said, I've chosen two, and they are The Boy Swallows Universe by Trent Dalton. This has to be one of the all-time greatest debut novels I have ever read. It is brilliant. It is absolutely stunning. I loved it. It is so inherently and uniquely Australian as well. It is set in Brisbane during the 1980s. They have to make a movie of this. I really would love to see that. But it is just one that has come out in Australia to great acclaim. It is doing the rounds. It hits every type of reader. If you love a good story, this is a really good book for you. It is kind of chunky, but I really do love it, and I think just the complexities of the entire story holds down the fort for me. Book number 2 of my favourite book of 2019 is going to be The Mere Wife by Maria Davana Headley. This absolutely blew it out of the water for me. It is a retelling of the ancient epic Beowulf, and it just takes it to a new level. It's a feminist retelling. It takes every element of Beowulf and puts it in a female perspective. It follows a mother, like Grendel's mother mainly, because she turns out to be one of the bigger baddies that they have to face down. But also there's other elements. There's like a chorus group of women within this kind of Stanford classic suburban lifestyle that keep everyone in check. There's the main wife of the politician or the local resident mayor, and her like disappointed dreams and hopes being crushed into this mold of what is expected of to be a woman in modern day, and to be a like political leader's wife as well. That kind of expectation is there. And then of course you have the Mere itself, which is like this otherworldly voice that is external but also internal, always watching and viewing, and it is like the classic Greek chorus of the book, and it's just, it holds so much power. It is brilliant. I loved it. I really loved it as a retelling. It is probably like 20 out of 10 for me. It was so good. So I think these two, if you haven't read these two yet for 2019, I'd recommend them. They're very good. I loved them. They're brilliant. Question 2 is the best sequel you've read in 2019 so far, and that is absolutely going to be The Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. I read the first one within about 2 days and I read the second one within about 2 days immediately following, and it can do that sequel magic so well. It kind of picks up from the end of the Six of Crows, the first book, straight away. It takes it to new heights, new levels, new complexities, which is why I love this duology so much. But it is honestly brilliant. Oh, it's longer as well, so it always has that classic sequel. There's a little bit more depth and a little bit more character development, but all the character development was within the character scope. Nothing felt like weirdly unusual for that character. Nothing felt out of place, and I could never ever predict what was going to happen in these two books because I knew I'd get it wrong every time. But I love this. It just took my love to Six of Crows to an entirely new pitch and fervour. It's brilliant. Question 3 is a new release that you haven't read yet but want to, and that is absolutely going to be Deviate by J. Christoph. I read the first one. It was probably one of the very first YA books I read in last year, and it was fantastic. It had so many great twists, really good action sequences, a completely curious and twisted dystopian future, and had elements of Mad Max in it, which was hilariously good fun. Especially after the Mad Max Fury Road movie came out, it felt like that, and it also had really intensely powerful female characters, which I loved. So Deviate is the second one. I have yet to read it. I am holding off. I don't know why, but loved Loved the first one. I can't wait for this one. Question 4 is the most anticipated read that will be released in the second half of 2019, and hands down, no holds barred, The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I loved, absolutely adore to my core The Night Circus. It upholds this magic, beauty for me. And so The Starless Sea, I know some people have already read it and there's already reviews going around on BookTube, and I am suffering. I can't wait to read it. It's coming out in November. It's going to be, I just know I'm going to love it. I'm going to put no expectations on plot. I just want to get into that Erin Morgenstern writing again. She was brilliant. I just loved her writing style. I loved the world that she creates, and like that kind of really interesting take on this magic, and also almost magic realism. I absolutely love it. So Starless Sea, definitely the one for me in 2019. Question 5 is biggest disappointment. Now that was a hard one because I've either gone into a book expecting not to like it, especially some book club books, or I've gone into a book and it turned out to be completely not what I was expecting, and that one happened with The Friend. It's gone around quite a lot on BookTube recently. It had quite a good press for it, and unfortunately I didn't read too much into press, and that led me to believe that I was going to have a heartwarming animal-human relationship, the beauty of friendship with dogs kind of thing. But it was more of a literary grief, a woman who was a literary writer, going through the stages of grief and how she was overcoming certain things. It was enjoyable. I did like it, but it was a disappointment. It was not what I was expecting. Question 6 is biggest surprise, and that was for me The Power by Naomi Alderman. This has been handed down as especially I think after Handmaid's Tale became huge, this was like the feminist, dystopian, world to read. It's like, what if women had more physical power than men and they could electrocute men and things like that, and they only had this inherent ability. But I think it was surprising because it was all of those things that I was expecting, but it wasn't this whole girl power, girls rule kind of thing. It was just showing that power in whatever hands corrupts. So if you give power to women, it's not going to suddenly make rainbows and everything better. It was a really good feminist concept that feminism is based on equality, that men and women be made equal, and as soon as those scales are out of a line, things go wrong and atrocities happen. And there are atrocities in this book. There's a really graphic rape scene of a man being raped by a woman in this. Towards the end, you kind of do expect it because you have rumours of that happening, but obviously going through the mechanics of how that happens and how it's witnessed. But otherwise it was a really good read. It's a read that stuck with me. It's always been present in my mind, and it's made me reassess the things I take for granted, things that happen to women, things that women just assume will happen to them, and really question who has the power in those situations. So it is a great book. It surprised me because it took the element of that story, and it took the element of feminism to that level so everyone can understand it's about equality, and as soon as you tip the scales, as soon as you give more power to someone else, it is there to be abused. And I loved it. It was brilliant. It was really good. So question 7 is favourite new author, and this is going to be new to me because these are not the debut books for these authors, and that is going to be number 1, Leigh Bardugo, Six of Crows. She's not a surprise on BookTube, honestly. She's been around. Everyone loves Six of Crows, Grisha trilogy. She's been around, but it's a revelation to me. She is absolutely brilliant. I loved this duology. I've just finished it too, so it's very fresh in my heart. And the other one is Neil Shusterman's The Scythe series. I had such an obsession with this series. It is so clever, and he was a really interesting author to meet. So once again, new to me. He's been around for a while. He's been writing lots of amazing books, but these are the first time I have experienced these writers, and I am probably going to read the rest of their books that they write. Question 8 is newest fictional crush. Now, I don't usually go into fictional crushes. I have characters that I absolutely adore, but I usually adore them within the context of the fiction that they're in. So for this one, I had to think of a character who I would love to be friends with, or who has really captured my heart in a way, and that was definitely Evelyn Hugo from The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, I know her Daisy Jones book is having a bit of a wildfire moment on BookTube or recently, but I really loved Evelyn Hugo. She was such a unique and very human character. She had so many flaws and she had so many good qualities, and just her life and her choices was so fascinating. I really couldn't put this book down. It was such a good read. I wasn't expecting to like it actually going into it, but I really did enjoy it, and it's one that my book club really loved. So if I could have a glamorous Hollywood friend, I would absolutely choose Evelyn Hugo because she was such a fascinating woman. Question 9 is newest favourite character. So unlike fictional crush, I assume this is a character that you've just enjoyed reading about, and that is going to be Hester Finch from Salt Creek by Lucy Trelaw. This is set, it's really amazing because it's set during Victorian South Australia, so where I'm from, and this Finch family have lost everything and have to sell up and move to a farm ranch down in the Coorong, which is south of Adelaide, and they basically become a pioneering farming family down in the south of South Australia. And just Hester is 15 years old, and it is amazing what she goes through. It's almost what I usually like to say. She has a sister called Adelaide, and the two sisters are basically Eleanor and Marianne from Sense and Sensibility. So Adelaide she's a lot younger than Hester. She grows up without this sense of care and without this restriction of society, where Hester is a lot quieter, but she's a very strong central character. If Hester wasn't there, I think the family would have crumbled. And so I just have this real appreciation for those characters who aren't vivacious, who aren't the life, that kind of bubbling center point, but just that strong, steady character who just holds everything together without people realizing. And she held the book for me. It was such a beautifully written book. It focuses on Hester, and I think that's the brilliant point of it, is that she becomes the strongest person to survive all the sorrows that happen to this family when they lose their fortune and have to live in the wilds of the South Australian Coorong. So question 10 is books that made you cry, and two books that made me cry and were incredibly emotional for me, like just traumatic emotion as well, would be The Great Believers by Rebecca Mackay, and also How We Disappeared by Jing Jing Lee. The sheer inhumanity of people and the lack of compassion shown to people suffering AIDS just broke my heart every time, and it was just so atrocious what these people had to suffer through. And then in How We Disappeared by Jing Jing Lee, the trauma that this poor girl had to face, and at the fear of realizing that even though none of it was in her control and none of it was sought out by her, she could never speak of it, and it could never been told or eased her burden of what she suffered, because it'd bring shame to her family. So it was just that sense of unending shame that she was suffering because she had been abducted and made into a comfort woman. So just that's that heart-rending trauma. It made me cry. I cried in both of these books, but for very different reasons, and I recommend both. If you want to cry, that too, but also because they're just so beautiful telling of human stories and very real voices. I think it's very well worth crying through these books. Question 11 is a book that made me happy, and I have three because, like I said, I'm terrible at choosing just one, but three very similar ones. And this is comics. So you've got The Prince and the Dressmaker, Bloom, and also Heartstopper. Now all these three comics have elements of LGBTQ, they have elements of romance, and they just have these really beautiful, unique stories that are being shared and embraced, and it just makes you so squishy happy to read these and to experience these beautiful stories. I especially love The Prince and the Dressmaker because there's historical elements to this story, but this one is coming out with volume 2 very soon, and I cannot wait. I think it's already out in the UK, which is killing me. It's not out in Australia yet, but I'm going to get straight onto that one because you cannot get enough of happy, blissful, beautiful LGBTQ stories of people finding their place in the world. Question 10 is most beautiful book you've received or bought this year so far, and I have 2. And number 1 is going to be A Constant Hum by Alice Bishop. This is published by Text Publishing, which is an Australian publisher in Melbourne. This is a stunning cover. It's mainly set during, around, before and after a wildfire in Australia, and that is an incredibly catastrophic event, but also this incredible wildfire allows the eucalypt and the wild Australian landscape to repollinate. So there is this new growth that occurs from devastation. So I think this cover not only has that beautiful element of Australian native flora, but also that budding of a new spring and new bloom. And I think I definitely will love this book, but it's just so beautifully designed that I can't help looking at it, and I put a really pretty picture up on my Instagram because this book deserves so many photos, it's not funny. And the other one that I bought and love, just because also that Kate Howe recommended it, and that's going to be the Persephone book, another Persephone book, and that is Someone at a Distance by Dorothy Whipple. Now this is actually a book about 2 people getting a divorce, I believe in the 1950s. Yes, it was the 1950s, but also that was quite an unusual situation at the time. The cover itself is amazing. It is a Persephone Books classic, and what I love about this book is that it also challenges from a very human and female perspective of divorce during the 1950s, because it was always placed back on the woman, and the blame had to be put on the woman on many occasions, even though they were the ones seeking the divorce. So love this cover, and thank you Kate Howe for recommending it, because as soon as I saw it on your account, I picked it up straight away. Now lastly, for question 13 is what books do you need to read by the end of 2019? And this segment is basically called What Series Has Kate Not Finished? And that's going to be Lady Helen and the Dark Days Pact. This is book 2 in the Lady Helen series. I still haven't read it. I've got it. It is beautiful. I love the first book. Don't know why I haven't read the second and third book yet, but I cannot wait to read it. It is a Regency dark fantasy. So what's not to love? Next we have another dark fantasy, but more of a grim dark fantasy, and that is Raven Cry by Ed McDonald. The third one has just come out, so I have to read this one to get to the third one. And the first one was brilliant. It had such a great, like, miserly main character, but then he was also really interesting in his perception towards women, and so there was a great, like, writing of women within that book. So I really want to read the second one, see where he goes further and see what the gods have planned. It's also a really great setting, so it's almost like post-apocalyptic, what happens when the world is completely destroyed, and it's like a regressive, like, society. Love it. And of course the giant chunkiest read that I need to read, because I haven't read it yet, is Lethal White by Robert Galbraith. I waited for this one. As soon as it came out, my mum borrowed this copy. She read it immediately and loved it, and I still haven't read it. I think I've got that nervous sensation of not liking it as much as I love the first 3, which is probably not going to happen, because I love the first 3, I love the characters, I love Robert Galbraith's, aka J.K. Rowling's, writing style. So I think I'm just holding out, because I want to hold out until there's a possible rumour that there's going to be a 5th one after this one. So I have to get to it. It will have to be done before the end of the year. So let's just hope, fingers crossed, that I will get that done. Alright, so that was my mid-year book freakout. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know down below if you want to answer any of the questions, or what are books that you've loved this year. If it's too hard, just give, like, honestly, I can never pick one. Give me your top 5 favourite books of 2019 so far. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye!